Hi guys, Jonathan here as usual. So unfortunately the last month has been a bit of a stressful time for me personally for reasons, but I still managed to work on this video, and I think that so far this is the video that took most of my time, like in general, to produce, and now you understand why. So recently, kind of recently, in the last months, in a flea market here in Lisbon, I found a book, a photography business book that is called Making Money with Photography in Every Conceivable Way, if I remember the title correctly. Yes. Yeah, this book is from 2006, and I picked it up out of curiosity because I thought that I was curious about this book. I wanted to read it, and at the same time I thought that it could have been interesting, like as a type of content for YouTube, for you guys. So yeah, and this is the book, by the way. Yeah, it's good to shoot the cover as well, because I always forget about that. So it could be something like yeah, I think that's enough probably. So, book by Steve Bavister. I didn't mention the author, from 2006, as I said before. And what did I want to see in this book? First, what actually changed in the last 20 years? And second, if anything managed to survive or not from these tips, because this book, being a photography business book, is about tips. And the result, like in general, wasn't exactly uplifting, let's go like that. It was more like eye-opening, more or less. And this is not a criticism of this book, it's more like looking at a snapshot of a profession that used to be more stable, more respected in some ways, and of course comparing it with what we deal with now with photography, like as a profession. So the situation that we have now, in which everything feels possible and impossible at the same time. But let's break it down. So just one quick thing before starting. I divided this video in 5 chapters, and I mean, the book is not divided in 5 chapters. It's divided in like different ways. Every couple of pages it changes the subject, so it's not exactly like this, but I wanted to make it more clear to you guys, so I decided to group some of the subjects all together, and yeah, that's why there are 5 chapters. So probably it was not worth mentioning this, but still, because in case if you buy the book and then you don't find 5 chapters, you're like, oh, okay, well, in the video it was mentioned, but it actually no, it's not like this. So chapter 1 is magazines, assignment, and a pre-social media world. So the book starts by explaining how to submit photos to magazines, like studying their style, building a cohesive portfolio, and like contacting the editors basically. And this reminded me of a time in which photography actually had clear doors you could try to knock on, you know. Well, today we know that these doors mostly don't exist. The editor is an algorithm, and basically your portfolio, unless you have a website or stuff like this, is your social media feed. But the funny thing is that some ideas survived. Like for example, in 2006, some editors wanted like small stories, before and afters, all this kind of stuff. That is exactly what we are seeing now with carousels, with short videos, like having something that goes together with the picture, or like more pictures all together, you know. Then the author talks about local newspapers, like as well as a potential source of income. And I mean, I believe that probably 20 years ago there was a sort of budget revolving around these local newspapers. Probably it was already tiny, but at the same time probably there was a budget. Nowadays I think that it's mostly like symbolic. So yeah, like for example, I received the local newspaper from the district where I live in. It's for free. I received it in the mail. I mean, I don't think that there's much of a budget, behind this. Not judging or anything. It's cool. Free press is amazing and everything, but I don't see it in 2025 as a potential source of income for a photographer. I think that all of this belongs into the realm of nostalgia at this point, probably. So the second chapter is about the postcards, stock, and a time in which photography of anything had value. This part of the book starts with advice for postcards and greeting cards, like when to shoot beaches, when to shoot monuments, and which animals used to sell the best. Like, for example, ducks, pigs, or dogs were a hit in 2006. And this all sounds cute, but also a market that required like a massive volume in order to matter, And even if today I don't think that anyone like in the photography business is making money through selling, I don't know, postcards or greeting cards, mostly because of all the images that you can find like for free on the internet or the AI as well. I mean, it's a totally different world. At the same time, it gave me an idea that is actually something that I already thought about like in the last couple of years, but I never did. I don't know why, because I live in a coastal town, and talking about like postcards or greeting cards or stuff like this that tourists buy, I thought of printing some of my pictures from my own place and selling them to tourists, like in the local market that we have close to the beach or this kind of stuff. I never did it, and I'm not doing it now because it's winter and there is not a lot of tourism here in Portugal during the winter. But maybe for next summer could be a nice idea. Doesn't make you rich, I don't think so, especially in my case, because I'm used to fail like miserably with this kind of stuff. But still, it's nice, and it's proof that you can get good ideas, interesting ideas from these old books as well. Then the author talks about stock photography that was described as a competitive market, but at the same time sort of viable, like through well exposed images, sharp images, this kind of stuff, not too creative, good for stock photography as we know it. And in my opinion, I don't know, because guys, I'm putting my hands in the front. I don't even know if this means something in English, because it's an Italian common saying, but still, I'm not into stock photography. I'm not selling pictures through stock photography websites. I don't know nothing about stock photography. The only thing that I know is that, as I said before, with all the influx of pictures that we have daily, that we've been having for the last, 10 to 15 years since social media started to develop and this kind of stuff, probably stock photography is not as big as it was, because the competition must be crazy, and mostly because of that. And also I mentioned the AI before, and I think that it's part of the issue in some ways, you can generate a picture of anything in this moment, so I don't know, honestly. I think that it's something that probably in 2006 was bigger than it is now. And this whole thing made me think that in this moment we have more ways to share photos than ever, but fewer ways to actually earn something from them. And it's interesting and sad. Yeah, it's mostly sad. Yeah. So chapter 3 is about weddings, portraits, and the smartphone reality. And strangely enough, the author Bavister already mentions concerns about the wedding market slowing down in the beginning of the 2000s. And I honestly thought that it happened recently with the rise of smartphones, more or less. But still, all the advice about the workflow, the timing, the relation with the couples, this kind of stuff, still remains 100% valid in my opinion. The only difference is that now you don't only fight with the light or the weather, you also fight with 200 people with their phones like this, and trying to capture the same moment that you're trying to capture, and at least from my experience, but that's about the smartphone era that I was referring to before, you know. Of course, the author couldn't know about what was happening with the smartphones, what was about to happen. So his comment was about a social fact, like people getting married less in general. My point is about this and about the technological fact as well, smartphones. Just to wrap it up. Another thing that the author talks about are portraits from home. Probably in the early 2000s people had more space in their houses, so like having a home studio was something that made more sense, probably. I don't know. Well, today most European apartments, I'm talking about Europe because I live in Europe, barely allow you to open a softbox, probably. And I mean, you can see it, guys. I take this occasion to apologize for my background in my videos. I know that it's messy, I know that it's, it's part of my style, it's partly something that I sort of a look in some ways. At the same time, guys, I don't know where to put my things because my apartment is small and it's, I don't know, it's like this. So this is the living proof of what changed in the last 20 years. Just to conclude about portraits, coming back to portraits, I think that the perceived value of a good picture, of a good portrait changed a lot because there's not much of a gap as there was in the beginning of the 2000s between professional photography and a picture taken with a smartphone, because smartphones are taking better pictures. They are helped by AI as well in the softwares. So I mean, there's a difference. I can see it. Probably if you're watching this video you can see it too. If you work with photography you can see it. But the average person starts to not see this much of a difference. So yeah, in general, these two markets, portraits and weddings, talking about like social photography, so photography of people, changed because of this, in my opinion. There's the perceived value is totally different nowadays. So chapter 4 is about commercial photography and the lost sense of professionalism. Here's where the book felt the most from another era. So in 2006, companies were just starting to make their own product photos, experimenting with digital cameras. But they often realized that they still needed a proper photographer, you know. Fast forward to 2025 and now it feels almost the opposite. Some companies act like calling a photographer is doing you a favor and not the other way around. The book talks about the space you need, the planning, the checklist, the lighting challenges, and basically how shooting products or interiors properly takes time and skill. And that has not changed. What changed is that most businesses don't want to pay for that skill. And this relates to something that I've been thinking about a lot. Like, we have more possibilities today, but we are losing the solid foundations that made this kind of profession, like photography, a sustainable way to earn a living. Because everything is flexible, freelance, temporary, and it's good for creativity, probably, and not so good for stability. That's the point, basically. So chapter 5 is about the rest: fine art, sports, writing, teaching, and what's left today of all of this. So this final chapter is a mix of sections from the book that all share the same feeling, in my opinion. They still exist, but in different forms. Fine art, for example, still works, but requires relentless marketing and a strong personal style. While probably before it was more about the style, now it's more about the marketing, social media, how to use the tools that we have. So yeah, it's a bit different. And it's different also because talking about competition, I mean, the competition now is global. You're competing with everyone on the net to sell your fine art pictures in this case, but to sell your photography in general. So yeah, the competition is way stronger probably nowadays. One thing that didn't change is sports photography, because for example during this year I tried doing some motorsports and football photography just for fun and to create contents or to test lenses. I remember that I bought a couple telephoto lenses that I wanted to test, so I did a bit of sports photography. But what you can do from the public area is very limited, of course, and yeah, it feels like a closed world if you don't know the right people, if you're not into that world like already. There are not a lot of chances that you can actually get into that world. So I think that it didn't change a lot in the last 20 years. One thing that is interesting is that the author talks about writing, and he's mentioning writing for publications. So for example, writing a little text that describes a picture that you're sending to a magazine, for example, just to give a bit of context, probably. And it's I mean, in my opinion, it's this is interesting because it's what we are supposed to do with social media, for example. Other things that are mentioned are like teaching or workshops. Usually when I hear about teaching or workshops is from like photographers who have big numbers online, so like a big following on YouTube or on Instagram. And I think that the main difference is that probably 20 years ago you had to build like a reputation in real life, while now you can build a reputation online and then move it to real life when you do workshops, for example. But don't want to say everything, but 90% of the stuff starts online. And as we were saying before, it seems easier, but at the same time the competition is way stronger, and yeah, it becomes a lot more difficult probably, rather than being easier. So again, the tools changed, the landscape changed, but the challenges didn't disappear, they just mutated. So we finally reached the conclusion, what this book made me realize. I want to say that reading this book wasn't just interesting, it was also, yeah, I'd say emotional. Like as I said in the beginning of this video, I originally picked it up for like out of curiosity, and because I thought that it could have been something interesting, like as a content, like a way to look at the photography world from 20 years ago and compare it to what is now, basically. And honestly, it did exactly that, showing me how many things changed in the last 20 years and how many things stayed the same. Usually the worst things stayed the same, unfortunately. And just to be completely transparent, I was mentioning my experience with photography from the last years, but photography is not even my main job anymore. Like I have a separate job that allows me to, I don't know, to live, to pay the rent and the groceries, this kind of stuff. And I do this kind of videos and photos like in my free time, like for example on holiday or during the weekends, or yeah, this kind of stuff. And this is funny because in the book there's this sort of idea that you can have like a part-time job in order to support your photography career, like in the first steps especially. And I don't know, probably in 2006 it was different, like the part-time jobs culture was bigger, I don't know. But nowadays I think that I don't know people who are doing part-time jobs, or if I know someone, it's like 5% of the people that I know, like in general, because having a part-time job nowadays doesn't allow you to do a lot of stuff, like living, for example. So I think that it's not viable anymore. Yeah, probably. Even the backup plan that the book suggests belongs to another era. But still, reading it reminded me of why I started, what I learned until now, and what I still want to explore, you know, talking about the genre, talking about travels, talking about a lot of stuff. Because of course a lot has changed, a lot has become harder, but the curiosity, at least for me, at least in this moment, is still there. So guys, thanks for watching, and thank you, Steve Babister, if you're watching this video, for unintentionally giving me a sort of time travel experience from a Lisbon flea market in 2025 to 2006. Bye guys.